Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, yes, 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 honey. Give me life.
I love it too. I love it, love it. It's my power necklace.
Hmm.
All right.
Hold on.
We live?
Yes, we are.
Blue ball is alcohol.
Oh,
Girl, keep the alcohol.
Keep it on the view.
Keep the alcohol.
oh my God.
Put the alcohol back.
You would wait till we went live.
This called Black Witch Chronicles, damn
I
it.
love it. I love that shirt, G. That is cute.
Thank you. It's a little sweater.
Yeah, I like that. That's cute.
I got it's maternity.
Oh.
Are we live now?
We've
Yeah.
been live.
Hey, y'all.
What's up, people? As you can see, we just socializing. Zoe just put us on here on fleek so Zoe can start talking.
Hey, everybody. Happy Blue Moon from the Black Witches.
Happy Blue Moon, y'all.
Happy Blue Moon. This is Dr. G Love here on the Blue Moon of July 2015, July 31st. And we have got a very pertinent topic for you all today. We're going to talk about surviving in a war zone, surviving inside of the rape culture, surviving inside of a culture that silences and sanctions the abuse of the Divine Mother, the Mother Earth, the incarnate Mother and feminine form, and we're going to be bringing it to you because it's time to truly break the silence. For those of you who may be in a place in your healing where an overt conversation about rape culture may be a trigger, I want to recommend that you perhaps have someone with you when you watch this, or choose to watch this at a time when you're very grounded, maybe not when you're on the go. And you can really sit and let the medicine of our voices reflecting you move forward, because this is how we heal. We heal by breaking the silence, and we heal by speaking the truth. Ashe Amen Aho Namaste. Hotep.
So, we're going to kick this conversation off with a piece by Andrea Arakanen. It's from the Black Women's Health book. It was, I believe, published in 2011. The piece is called I Call Up the Names, Facing Childhood Sexual Abuse. And it goes like this. Dear Mother, I began to choose life during the summer of 1982. In October of that year, I was 32 years old. It was exactly 20 summers after it all began. I turned. I faced the direction past. I understood it was a detour to forward, an echo of present. I believed this way led to a livable future. I decided to stop fading, becoming silent, still. I decided to remember the bright promise I had at 3 and 5 and 8 and 11. I decided to live in the arms of a woman who helped me to remember that I had been a child then. I had forgotten I believed myself a woman, responsible, guilty, to blame. Everyone had treated me like I was a woman, responsible, guilty, to blame. What do you feel, my lover asked? What do you think about it all? I blinked in confusion. Feel about it all. Think about it all. I felt nothing. I thought nothing about it all. I sat inside her blazing eyes, seeing and hearing an example of what I could feel, what I could think. I saw grief for the child I had been. It was not your fault, she said. Her words struck me in a true place like a hammer perfectly put to a nail. I knew she spoke the truth. In her arms, I was safe for the first time since I was 11. He was a Methodist minister. You taught me to call him Godfather, even though he was not. He paid our bills, bought our food and clothes. He gave you money. He gave me money. I washed the floors, changed the bed, dusted the furniture, ignored the clothes inside the big house on the avenue, where the clothes, the floors, the bed, the furniture were never dirty to begin with. I was the child they never had, a servant girl, an arrangement. I was a little black girl from the Magnolia Projects. It was a little black girl from the Magnolia Projects. James Arthur Daniels was at least 30 years older than my 11 years. He abused me emotionally, sexually, and physically. It started just before my 12th birthday. This abuse lasted nearly a decade. When I was 15, James Daniels raped me for the first time. I meant full penetration. His penis in my vagina, in my ass. Before that, he used his fingers, his hands, and objects like bottles. He used his mouth once, but he hated my female taste. I did not believe it was rape. I did not believe it was rape. I believed that I was bad, that I had seduced him. I believed that I deserved the pain, the ripping, his bruising hands, his sharp teeth. It was not a mirage. It was not my imagination or dream. I was not crazy. I was not making it up. None of it was made up. I did not dream the loss. I did not make up the guilt, force my separation from God, my church, my community. I did not imagine the shame, the judgment, the cold silence and distance. That I was placed apart and blamed is real. By 1987, after years of therapy, authentic loving, and a decision to live sane and whole, I believe that I was finally finished with James Daniels. I believe I had gotten over your selfish and your self-centered response to my telling you about how he'd abused me. I believe that after 25 years I could forgive or let go of those who had left me unprotected, those who blamed me, those who judged a child guilty of her own abuse. What I found as I attempted to complete this work was yet another layer of abuse just beneath the nearly a decade of James Daniels. I had also been abused by two women. One of them was you. The other was Hareen Baker, the teacher I had met at church camp. I kept that a secret. I kept it even from myself, even when the knowing stood between me, a slow death, and an informed lie. I remember your abuse of me, Hareen's abuse of me. In snatches, I jumped back away, as if scalded, as if hexed, as if memories lie, and all the lies are truth. As the memories come and shake my head I shake my head in disbelief and despair. Not my mama. My mama loved me, sacrificed her entire life for me. She loves me best. I put my hands out, try to stop the images, the memories, the dreams, the deep in my heart knowing. I pray they are lies, an illusion. I have tried everything to avoid seeing my cancellation, my willingly sacrificed in your eyes. Mother, you sexually abused me when I was a child. You allowed my sexual abuse for nearly a decade. You cut my lifeline at 11 for a pittance. You snatched my childhood. You betrayed me. You bound my childhood devotion to you, to your care and your protection, even at the expense of death of mine. As I came to know this, began and continue to remember this, I was terrified that you would not believe me, that you would reject me. I was sure you would judge me, call me a whore, slut, bastard, ungrateful, good for nothing, unworthy of my birth. I knew that you would translate the deepest betrayal of me into your pain and your need and your burden. There is still a place in me that wants you to hold me, to comfort me, to say that you are sorry, that you are wrong, that it was not my fault. There will always be the place, even though I am letting you go. I will let go of you and taking care of me because you did not. For most of my life, I have mothered myself. I am writing to you because I have come to a place beyond fear. I am moving forward and cleansing and fueling anger that will end my grief. I will not hold secrets. I will no longer keep the silences or even unsaid rules. I am embracing the doe-eyed girl I was at 11. I am holding me, telling me it was not my fault. I am honoring my courage and strength during those nightmare years. I am so grateful to myself for saving my life until this time when I can remember naming and becoming myself. I tell myself that it is over. The lies, the tearing, the bruising, the betrayal, the hate, that particular death wish is over. In the name of the goddess and gods, known and unknown, named and unnamed, in the name of my foremothers and forefathers, known and unknown, named and unnamed, in the name of my brothers and sisters, my friends, my lovers, my daughters and sons, those who have died so young, those who are yet living, I pray that I continue to break the cycles of madness visited upon man, upon woman, upon man, upon woman, woman upon man, woman upon man, man upon woman, father upon daughter and son, and mother upon son and daughter, kin and neighbor against each other. I pray these truths will afford my daughter no betrayal on my own hand, nor any betrayal that I know of and will not stop. I call upon the names woman, who has been born in the arms of a woman and welcome home. I shout truth teller, silence breaker, life embracer, death no longer fearing, woman united with her child self. I sing women and daughters, sister, lovers, mother, herself. I hum woman planter, gatherer, healer. I drum woman warrior, siren, woman who stands firmly on her feet, woman who reaches inward to her center and outward towards the stars. I am woman who is child no longer, woman who is making herself sane and whole. It is done, so let it be. Blessed be. Ashe.
Ashe.
So much there.
At 5 years old, I was raped. It was my mother's boyfriend. At night, when my mother worked, he would put his fingers inside of my vagina. At one point, he tried to insert his penis inside of my vagina. That was the first time that I remember being sexually assaulted. 5 years old. I am breaking my silence tonight so that I can heal, so that I can create space for other people to heal, so that you feel brave enough to engage in the love and support that the universe has to offer by way of your healing. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Zoe, for holding such good space. And thank you to all of our viewers out here and co-creators and fellow healers and survivors. This is the work of our time. At this time, we have a profound journey to look at. And it's a journey of war and destruction. And the weapon of rape can be traced back very far as one of the original weapons of mass destruction, long before we came up with bombs, guns, technology. It's one of the earliest technologies. The technology where, let's say, a warring tribe or area, nation could go in, kill all the men, rape all the women, and moving through a patriarchal line, saying we've now infiltrated the genetic structure, so now we claim this land as our own. That has extrapolated itself over time to sometimes it's just a flag that we plant somewhere on the earth to say, this land is ours. We've brutalized our way into this land, we've conquered, and now we're claiming it our own. On this blue moon, I want to point out that we've even done it to the moon. We've planted flags on the moon. And so when we talk about the word culture, when we bring up the concept of rape culture, we're really asking that everybody have a broad understanding that this affects all of us. It affects the energy that you breathe, that you live in. It affects your food. Your food is on the earth. Your food is contaminated on this contaminated earth. This water is contaminated. There are so many ways in which Mother Earth herself is being pillaged and extracted and utilized, often against her will, and just for the gain of power and money, and other things. We'll just leave it at that. We'll say power. And so, really, the conversation tonight is about what do we learn when we can all come together and break the cycle? What can we do when we begin sharing? When we share and break the cycle, we find out how at one we are with history, how at one we are with the earth, and that we have profound resources of survival, of strength, and of power. And not only that, but we have all of the necessary information coded inside of us to work against this cycle, to break this cycle. And the main way that this cycle has been perpetuated for so long has been through silencing. Just complete silencing of the voice. Right now we have a situation where there's a cultural consciousness opening. I think perhaps the biggest cultural consciousness opening of my lifetime, where people are looking at this because of the women who have come out and spoke against Bill Cosby as a serial rapist. And when that conversation was had, people resisted. People resisted for 10 years. People quieted. People really, as a group, as a nation, we the people, really worked to keep that silence. And we're continuing to work to keep that silence, but we've seen an opening. People are saying, is it possible? Could it really be? Mm-hmm. And is it because all these people are terrible, or is it because this culture has really true, the silence has become a pervasive frequency that moves through all of us? Right. So many of us who have experienced rape, sexual assault, extreme trauma, abuse, immediately place it somewhere so far back in the consciousness that we don't remember it. So part of the culture is the lack of memory. The silencing creates an energy of it must not have happened. Mm-hmm. And so by us coming together as a group, energetically, we're creating a frequency, an open portal for people to reclaim their power. We all can reclaim our power because your power cannot be taken from you.
Right.
Right. And that piece is so important. And I think going along with the silence is also the shame. The silence and the shame go side by side. And that shame can either come from that adult that's actually committing the assault, or the parent that doesn't want to face the truth about the assault. And so, or society that ultimately says, she must have done something wrong, he must have done something wrong, they must have been fast, what were they wearing, etc., 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 excuse, so that the adult doesn't have to step in and do the adult's job of protecting the child. So then the child is left feeling the shame. Oh, there must really be something wrong with me. And then that can also lead to, who wants to feel that shame? So then, of course, you're going to tuck it into the back of the head, like you were talking about, G. And so then our life becomes a series of keeping the secret and ducking the shame. And it plays out in all different kinds of ways. And so, and I think we talked about this before when the whole Bill Cosby situation first started to present itself, is that I think it was Yuji that was like, you know, he was the ultimate father, right? So this is the ultimate incest case, really. And you have a whole nation colluding with this batterer in the same way that sometimes families encircle that abusive parent because we just can't accept it. We won't accept it. There must be something wrong with that child. You know, why is that child trying to take down this good man, this patriarch, this provider, and then adding on top of it that it's a black man. And so we really don't want to talk about that because we really can't afford to have any critique of black men at all. There's no room for that at all, certainly. So.
Yeah, this is true. You know, Keisha, I heard you say that you were breaking the silence by talking about your experience at such a young age and at such a formative age. And so I really want to honor you for that and, you know, really raise your spirit up and raise the spirit up of everyone who has had this sort of experience to say, no, it wasn't your fault. And to say, in this moment, we're clearing all shame. We're clearing all guilt. We're clearing all thoughts, especially the thoughts of children or young women or women of any age, that in any way you were responsible for your actions, or that you were required to carry the burden of silence with you for 35 years.
Right. And a lot of people carry it to their grave. You know, there's a lot of people that carry that secret to the grave because you can't say it, especially if it's an uncle, a boyfriend, a father, a brother in the community. You don't want him to go down. You don't want to deal with the police industrial complex, and especially you don't want to say that it is somebody, especially if you're a female and you're already a young child and you don't really understand sexuality and you have another female sexually assault you, like the story that I just read where the mother and a person in the church had sexually assaulted this child, you know, and made her feel shameful for it, made her carry the burden, you know. A lot of the stuff that is gotten away with in white patriarchal culture is due to the shaming and the silencing, as if we did something to make it happen. Like Zoe said, if you wear a short skirt, if you're deemed the loose girl in the community, if you're somehow having copious amounts of sex, then of course the time that you get raped, you deserve that because you're a loose woman, you know. So us having the right to our bodies in whatever way we see fit is all around this rape culture. And us having a right to our body, like Sandra Bland having a right to her body, a right to smoking a cigarette in her car, a right to questioning authority, right? About why she got to get out of the car. You know, all of that goes back to rape culture and us having a right to our bodies.
Yes. And a right to our voice and a right to our opinion without being critiqued or punished for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Right.
The other thing that in my practice I work with a lot of people who are moving through healing themselves from this trauma. And there are a few things that I'll show as patterns. One, people, so many amazing people, not hermits, some are hermits, but people who have families, people who have friends, people who have huge communities,
Right.
adults are coming to me and saying to me, I am the only person that they can talk to about this or that they have spoken to about this. And while while there is a part of me that feels utterly honored that I can hold that kind of space,
Right.
there's always a part of me that is so heartbroken that really strong, powerful people, people of all genders, I might add, uh, feel so silent that they have to seek out this one tiny quiet space where they can have this conversation, and that the work gets done in this tiny bubble. And I certainly do my best to create the most beautiful, welcoming bubble, to invite all the ancestors in. But to have one witness just speaks volumes in how afraid we as a society are of that shunning that you talked about, Keisha. A lot of people express that if this happened to them when they were children or when they were young, and they come from a strong Christian background or a strong religious background, that they internalize themselves as being damned to hell because they had memos given to them that sex before marriage means you're going to go to hell or that it's a sin. And children are very particular about hell. Usually they're pretty, afraid of it and very literal about it. And I've had a number of people really say that they were silenced because the depth of the shame went all the way to their soul. Mm-hmm. They were ashamed before God and humanity. What a terrible weight to carry. And I encourage everyone to just, it's not your fault. Was not our fault. It is not our fault.
And can I speak to the fact that that is a very powerful tongue binding spell? Okay, that's a very powerful tongue binding spell. When you do that to children, you do that to women, when you do that to people who have been harmed, you're casting a spell so that they don't tell, so that they don't speak ill of you, and you're eating them from the inside out. That's what that does. And so if you're familiar with tongue binding spell, there is ways to get that off of you. I highly suggest that you research that, okay? Get some cleansing baths can do wonderful. We talk about that often here on Black Witch Chronicles, how wonderful just a good cleansing light bath over a period of 3 to 7 days can really loosen the tongue and give you courage. But know that when power seeks to quiet you, that is a tongue binding spell. It is also an entrapment and engagement of your soul. Okay.
So I think that we should also talk about some of the ways that this plays out, what this might look like, in your life. G, you want to talk a little bit about the central nervous system, the fight or flight, and then I'll talk about some of the other coping mechanisms and things like that.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The phrase that's widely used at this time, and this is not a phrase of indigenous technology, it's a modern day phrase, but we'll use it because it's applicable, which is post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder or syndrome, PTSD for short. PTSD can be imaged in an MRI, and the brain looks different. So one thing people don't really understand is why people can't get over the past. Mm-hmm. I have unfortunately been told that all of my life, that I should just get over it, that I'm very well loved, I'm very well educated, blah, blah, all these examples of why I should be completely in a state of peace and ease, should not be indulging anger, should not be indulging sadness, should not be indulging depression. And it is because we live in a culture that, on that tongue binding, it binds this essential feminine, not gender, just divine feminine nature of emotions. And we already know, we discussed that here in Black Witch Chronicles, that our emotions are our key guides to spirit. That the spirit is speaking through us when we feel emotions. But we currently live in a society that tells us, oh, you're feeling anxious? Go away from it. Medicate it. Oh, you're feeling depressed? Go away from it. Medicate it. And I'm not judging medication. I'm saying that, yes, there are conditions where people are in a chronic state and need outside assistance, whatever that may look like. However, in general, on a day-to-day basis, our emotions are always speaking to us. And one of the ways in which our emotions speak to us is through the nervous system and the endocrine system. And if a person is under a constant state of repression, a constant state of oppression, a constant state of repression, this trauma can get lodged in the nervous system, and then it causes a hyper-arousal of the nervous system. This is called a protection mechanism. This is why human beings are as amazing as we are, because we have incredible protection mechanisms set up and designed to help us get out of very nerve-wracking situations. And that protection mechanism has actually been exploited by the rape culture, because when the autonomic nervous system gets overstimulated, then a person goes to sort of these three places, either the vagus or autonomic nervous system, which is going to be fight, flight, or freeze. So then it may be something as simple as someone cutting you off in traffic and you immediately fly into a rage because you felt your life was threatened for a moment there. And that nervous system is so hyper aroused that you go quick to fight. Or some people just go quick to silence and freeze. There are many people who just don't feel they can be confrontational. They don't feel that they can say to their boss when they get wrongly accused of something, I didn't do that. They just take it and then they internalize it and go home and go through a myriad of emotional distresses. So when this nervous system kicks in, and if you find yourself either going quick to fight, anger, rage, outrage, quick to freeze, you somehow can't, you want to, but you can't speak or can't act out or can't face people, or if you find yourself, wanting to run, a lot of people just want to flee. And fleeing is a typical thing. A lot of times people who've been traumatized will live in an environment and then things will get messy. There'll be a breakup, and the breakup will be so traumatic, it'll trigger that autonomic nervous system. There'll be big fights, there'll be drama, or they'll be frozen, there'll be silence. Something will happen, and the person will be so traumatized that they move. And then something will happen at the job in the next place, 5, 10 years later, 1 year later, and there'll be an altercation at the job. Because these things happen. We live in a war zone. So we really can't guarantee that we're not going to come upon some form of war, some form of real hardcore dissonance. Again, there you are in a fight at the job or getting fired from a job, and you panic. You run again because there's this conflated feeling in the nervous system that everything is falling completely apart. And the only thing you can do is escape. And that, of course, is a protection mechanism, because if there is danger, escape is a cool way to get away from stuff. Run is great. Just like sometimes fight is great. Just like sometimes, play possum and freeze is great. You don't see me, I don't see you. But not in our day-to-day living. So if you are out there and you find yourself having these symptoms and you're in these healing crises, reach out. Find someone. Call me, call us. Contact a healthcare professional that you can trust. Contact a healer that you can trust. Contact a friend. Contact a true trusted person. Not someone who's going to give you the runaround. Not somebody who's going to explain to you that they too had assault and trauma and they're doing fine and they don't know why you're not doing fine. That's not for you. If somebody says that to you, I repeat, it's not your fault. That person is in the matrix. Go and find someone who listens to you, believes you, and can walk with you, because this is a physiologic issue. It can be tracked. It can be recorded. It is physiologic.
And one of the other things that happened also on some level, especially dealing with younger childhood sexual abuse, right? Sometimes the children on some level actually know that their parents may or may not be equipped to deal with what they're actually going through, right? So they begin to, just like the writer of that story, they begin to parent themselves. And so what this can lead to as you go into adulthood is severe isolationism and a lack of trust of other people, and also a lack of trust in yourself, right? And other coping mechanisms that I see, doing domestic violence work, but also doing Reiki work, is the typical things that we say, the typical, like shopping, right? What we call addictive behaviors, right? Can sometimes really be coping mechanisms for people. So eating, shopping, sex, all those things can just be another way of stuffing those emotions that people are afraid to face, right? Instead of going into that closet and facing that boogeyman, let me just go and shop, or let me just go, pick up a stranger, or let me just, indulge in alcohol or substance abuse or whatever, anything just to not face what's really happening and what really happened to me. So protection and coping mechanisms are very, very, very strong. And then also finding yourself in the position of being the bully, right, or being the cop, or being the abuser even. Again, another way to try to take back that control that was taken from you at such a young age.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you, Zoe, to go into, how those things sometimes are indicators of repressed memories. Because it's interesting, there are some movements out here saying that there shouldn't be a statute of limitation on sexual assault, because often people, the silencing works so well that people don't really remember a sexual assault or can't really articulate it. That Keisha was very wise with that tongue binding spell. That will hold for longer than 7 years. It'll hold for 20 years. It'll hold for 30 years. It'll hold for a lifetime. So what about how all the things the bullying, the being completely in control, then you set yourself up to where people hate you. People are angry with you because you're angry with yourself. You're angry with these. There's a secret inside of you, and it's almost like this reflection that people are giving you is they're seeing you play out the repressed anger and rage of being traumatized.
Right.
Then that's where we start saying people have mental health issues. That's where we start calling people, people start getting called crazy. People start getting ostracized from their communities. People end up getting divorced. All kind of stuff happens. And so here we have a person who really needs assistance, and instead the person is being pushed away. So that feeds even more into that isolationism. So I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about what people can do who are seeing symptoms but can't put two and two together. They say, I have these symptoms, but I don't really know. I don't have any recollection of anything happening in my life. I don't know what's up with this.
Well, I think definitely what you said before, you might want to seek out a healthcare practitioner, seek out a holistic healer, seek out even a, Western psychologist, psychiatrist, if you feel like that's right for you, to help you sort of work that stuff out. I would also recommend journaling, starting out by journaling, just so you can track your thought behaviors. Tracking your triggers, I feel, is very important, especially if you're finding yourself going into that immediate that fight response in particular. Really tracking, when do I feel the need to be controlling? What is making me, when do I pop off on people? Really beginning to track that, but also just reaching out to healthcare practitioners.
I want to also add reaching out to some of the root workers and some of the diviners that can help you remember. I want to introduce my friend, Elizabeth Ruth, my sister.
Hello.
In Chicago.
Hey, Elizabeth.
A lot of divining. Yeah, she does a lot of divining and have had clients who have been sexually abused, don't remember, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sometimes it's repressed memories, but what I often find from victims of sexual assault is that, you know, they've got it repressed to a certain point. But what happens is it influences the relationships they choose, how they choose to be treated. A lot of them have father issues, so whether they were sexually or mentally abused by their fathers. So what I will get is a lot, and most of my clients are women, and most of them are women of color. So you've got the shame, what you were talking about, being ostracized by the community. And so because of also the whole shame of seeking mental health services, my day job is with the school that trains psychologists. And so often when I'm reading for these people, and there's always some tears, they'll come in for something that's very surface level. Something like, you know, getting control over their lives, or something like you said, the shopping or the eating. And once you start talking to them, and 9 times out of 10, I'll get that King of Swords reversed, and I'll know. And
can you talk about that King of Swords?
Well, you know,
a little bit,
right? Because, you know, if you stop and think about the King of Swords and he's upright, that's somebody who is strong. He may be reckless, but he is a fighter. He is a defender. When my interpretation, and often what Spirit brings to me, is when it's reversed, it's somebody who's fighting against you. Somebody who was meant to protect you, but who has destroyed you. So often women who have been victims of sexual assault, women who have been abused by their fathers, people who are in abusive relationships where their partner is raping them. That is often when that card comes up. And it's, you know, it's devastating for me, because as an empath, this starts coming on me, rolling back on me. And I am also a survivor of sexual assault and molestation. So it's like double time. You know, I try to get my clients to open up as much as possible, so I'm not blindsided by that in the middle of a reading. But, you know, people don't want to talk about it. You know, and often, you know, they blame the miniskirt for the rape. You know, often these women have gone to their own mothers, and their mothers have told them, no, that can't be true, or what did you do? It reminds me of the scene from Precious when she kept saying, what'd you do, what you do, what you doing? You know, and that's how a lot of our mothers have treated us when we have come to them. So, you know, a lot of sisters, you know, they're like, I'm not even going to do that, because they already know the answers we're going to get, because what you'll find is it's a cycle of abuse. And so, you know, I grew up watching a mother being physically abused. So I know that when I speak of my own abuse, if she can't fight for herself, she's not going to fight for me.
There you go.
So therefore, and just like any cycle, poverty, family curse, whatever, it continues. And you know, my clients are always surprised, because, you know, they expect mystic woo when they come see me. You know, I'm a very practical witch. And I'm like, look, have you seen somebody about this? And the line that I most often have to tell my clients is, you need to get your ass on somebody's couch real quick. Because these people are snowballing from destruction. It's not just women either.
No.
You know, I read from men who have been sexually assaulted by other men, and, you know, they're crying. You know, it's like, you know, at this day and age, I don't think that anybody should be ashamed. And most definitely with hypnosis and developments and those types of things, no, there shouldn't be a statute of limitation on rape, because it could take somebody till they're 50 years old to say, not even remember, because most of the sisters that I know don't even repress it.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, they'll take it to the grave.
They push it down, and that's the major problem. A lot of the problems come from they repress it and then it explodes. But see, for us, for most sisters, it's always right below the surface, controlling and navigating our lives in ways that we don't even know. And so for that part, it's repressed, but they remember it. And they remember not being able to tell anybody, and they remember the horror of it, and they choose their mates, unfortunately, based on that, and they continue. So most of them started off being sexually assaulted and never stopped being sexually assaulted. because they always remembered, and then they kept repeating the cycle themselves.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we know is that these things affect your health across the lifespan, both domestic violence and sexual assault, particularly with women of color. You know, one of the things that we see is that there's a higher incidence of attempted suicides, again, something else we don't talk about in communities of color. Alcoholism, again, substance abuse, overweight, these things, diabetes, they're now linking diabetes
High
to
blood pressure.
domestic violence and sexual assault. And so high blood pressure. So these things are impacted. If you look at people that are involved in gangs, if you go back and you look at what happened in their own lives, you'll see that there's often a history of domestic and sexual violence. So these things play out all across the lifespan. You know, there's lots and lots of work being done about and that have been done about the effects of domestic and sexual violence across the lifespan.
Absolutely. I mean, it is so profound. It affects it creates arthritis, autoimmune diseases, this outrageous uptrend of diabetes is not strictly related to sugar and food, although it is. But energetically, when a person is stressed, the systems are stressed. So maybe you would have a pancreas that could handle the amount of sugar you consume, except your pancreas is already taxed. Your liver is already taxed. We hold a lot of anger in our liver, so we're repressing anger. You know, like how Elizabeth Root just talked about, and this is, you know, this is my experience. I'm a person who's been aware of the fact that I'm constantly navigating trauma. And when I try to speak about it, I've often in my life in the past been really squashed. So I was taught a lesson. Keep it moving and don't expect people to help you. So that created a situation where it was always like I was trying to keep the lid on the pot from bubbling over. So that's the liver. So then it was like, oh, I had to start doing all these detoxes. Like instead of being able to speak, I had to like detox because I felt myself like dying. I felt myself becoming toxic, becoming bloated, becoming ill, putting on weight suddenly out of nowhere. Like these things started happening physiologically to me in my body because the kind of people I had in my life and the kind of society I was living in were requiring, I felt, a simmer, you know, and my choices were obviously poor on who I chose to share with, because a lot of times you'll choose to share with someone and that person is also a survivor and they're going through their own stuff, so they want to plop the lid right back on. Don't bring that up to me.
And I think it's also important to talk about, you know, a lot of times too, people's developmental capabilities and things like that can be stunted at the age where that trauma happened too. So you might be 30, 40, 50, 60, but developmentally you might be stuck at age 6 or 7 or 5 or whenever that first trauma was inflicted upon you. So you're not going to maybe respond like a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old. You might be responding like that 7-year-old and that 12-year-old.
Right.
So that's but one other thing I do want to say about parents is to, you know, we talk about believe women and believe children, and I feel like we do such a disservice to children and teach them not to believe their instincts and not to believe their feelings from such a young age. I mean, how many children cried when you wanted to send them to somebody's house, or don't want to sit on somebody's lap, and you're like, go ahead and sit on, you know, go sit on their lap, go sit on uncle or auntie's lap, and the child is crying, bawling, not wanting to go. You are teaching that child not to trust their own instincts, not to believe in themselves. That is a big deal. Stop doing it.
Right. Absolutely.
It's soul crushing. I mean, there are a lot of people who potentially had psychic gifts and other things, but you know, in order to do this work, you have to be, unfortunately, at times really wide open. So if you shut down at 6 years of age, you never develop that. You're never able to be completely open.
Right. Right.
And you know, those diseases are definitely stress related, and I have both of them. Diabetes and high blood pressure for years and years and years and years and years of keeping it just below the surface.
Absolutely. The other thing is doing this healing work. And here we are, 4 black witches, all who can attest to this. When you take what I will call a risk, because it feels like a risk, it feels like walking into a blazing hot fire, speaking, breaking the silence, allowing yourself to just say, you know, to quote Keisha on a regular, I give no fucks. If all y'all people are going to walk away from me because you don't understand what I'm going through, and, you know, Keisha, we talked about this before we went on air, anger, you know, I got all this anger pent up in me. You know, you want me to heal, but you want it to be pretty.
Right.
You want me to heal, but could I please do respectability politics because I'm embarrassing you? And Melissa Harris Perry talks about this in one of her books, which is, you know, we have, as black women and as black people, we have collective pride. You know, a black person does something, we want to be proud. Well, what goes with that is collective shame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh, now you're cutting up. You've embarrassed me. So all of a sudden, you have to walk through that fire. You have to say to yourself, wow, the people around me may be my so-called allies, but truthfully, they're my allies to a point. Because they're not going to sit here and hold me when I start wilding out. They're going to step 15 step backs and be like, sister girl done tripped out, you know, and want to like distance themselves from that because that frequency of collective shame comes in. And shame is such a powerful frequency that it'll like override love, it'll override solidarity, it'll override support. It's not even saying people don't love and support you. It's that collective shame frequency could just knock a whole gang of people down. So I really do mean that when you're going into the healing crisis, you do need to find solid allies because anything can happen around you due to the fact that you have no control over other people's relationship to silence, other people's relationship to collective shame, other people's relationship to denial, and so forth. And so with that said, when you do the work, as the 4 of us are here representing right living humans, your energy is wide open and that witch factor comes out because you've learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You have been through human nature. You have observed human nature. You have a complex mind. You have a complex spirit. You have a complex heart. You can see how a beautiful person can also be the most vicious, ugly person at the same time, and that it doesn't erase their beauty. You can see how someone who supported you and fed you and loved you and cared for you and who you truly were happy to see come home from work can also be your night terror.
The worst terror of your life.
Yes. And when you can see that, you sure can be a diviner. You sure can be a healer.
Right.
You sure can be a black witch out here. Because you know something. And you know something real.
Yeah.
I often would be angry because I'm 46 years old and I've only been doing this a few years. And I'm like, you know, if I had been doing this for 20 years, I'd just, you know, be so wherever I'm supposed to be. But then I have always thought that my Creator has me where I am at the time where I need to be. And I don't think that I would have been as effective if I was younger. You know, I think that I had to go through those things. I had to learn to talk. I had to sit with other family members who've been molested and raped by the same person and speak. So when I had to speak about it with somebody else, I didn't fall apart. You know, so it's like we have to kind of like grow into our work. But I know that when I was younger at the time, maybe I wished I'd started practicing. I wasn't ready because I hadn't dealt with the demons that had haunted me.
Yeah.
It's a relearning process, a relearning to see, a relearning to feel, a relearning to be the intuitive being that you are, because so many people have, like G said, and like everybody has said, told you to calm that feeling, that intuitive feeling that tells you something's not right. Like we tell people to ignore our spirit guides, and we have to relearn to use our spirit ear again. So that relearning process is painful and sometimes treacherous, and but it is all the time healing. It is all the time a gathering of spirits. I mean, look, I'm sitting here on camera with some of my closest witch friends.
Do you remember what we talked about
Yeah.
tonight? And I explained to a friend of mine who is not a witch. So she's standing around talking to 3 black witches, and I'm like, you must understand that the white Christian church in this country, and I am a Christian witch, but the way they have taught us Christianity has taught us this shame about this very subject that we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not as it only taught us the shame about sexuality and things like that and blaming women, and what has additionally happened by worshiping in a way that was not meant for us in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
We have taken our skills, our intuition, our psychic abilities, our abilities to create magic. Because my great-grandmama could make magic with some olive oil and a white candle. She need nothing else. But you know, you got people telling you that you're going to go to hell because you're a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you have to understand holy books and how they're written and revised. A lot of people have never had a chance to dig as deep as, say, a black witch has, because we've been on all sides. We've been in the church, we've been in the cult, we've been here, we've been there, we've been in travel, we've been in sanctuary, we've been in all of it.
Yes.
So we have a worldview that somebody else may not have. But see, that's the thing. And that's when people talk about why does it seem like, not just before the white folks started going crazy, because they ain't never stopped. But when we start talking about the epidemics of violence in our communities and why are we all crazy and why are we don't have a spiritual base, was because you tried to put a round or square peg in a round hole spiritually. And you can't do that. Or I would think we were round going into square. But anyway, for a continual circle. But we have denied our spirituality. When you deny the base of who you are, and how you should be connecting with your higher power, how you should be connecting with your ancestors. Because I told my girlfriend, oh, you all call them angels, we call them ancestors. There's no difference. They're spirits. They're our guides. So they let people attach words to things to shame us. Mm-hmm. So it goes deeper than just sex.
And we've even been told that we don't have the right faculties to connect with God or their spirit higher being, which is why we go to a pastor and believe everything that the pastor says or everything that these patriarchal forces say, because they are the only one that can divine or connect to spirit,
or lay hands on you,
or like they're the only people with the magic. We have no magic, and that is outside of ourselves.
And that is why collectively we have a spiritual bankruptcy in our communities.
And I think that's in. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie.
I'm sorry. What do you say?
No, go ahead. You were saying spiritual bankruptcy in our communities.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the devastation. If you really stop to look at our development in this country, the fact that we are still alive, we owe to magic.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't know that. People do stuff that we consider to be magic, and they don't even know they're doing it. We would not have made it over 400 years in this country without it. And the further we get away from it, and the more we let Hollywood demonize what we do, and the more we play into, because if you ever notice, in every horror movie, who's the most scared cat in the room? The black person. Black person.
They want to kill first.
Yeah, he kill first. First one to run from spirits. We don't run from spirits. And if you are, then somebody taught you wrong. So, you know, the further we get away from our true spiritual selves and worshiping the way that is appropriate for our souls, the worse it's going to get.
And I think it's also important to remember that not only, you know, speaking on Christianity, but some of that patriarchy, obviously, we also see in the African traditions because of colonization, and women aren't allowed to be priests and, you know, all this other kind of stuff. But I'm not even going to talk about that. But a lot of, you know, so we weren't allowed to read. And so we basically were given this secondhand information, this Christianity that was given to us sometimes by, you know, a slave master, or more often than not by a slave master. So we're already getting secondhand information. We can't read. We're taking bits and snatches and pieces of scriptures and this and that and building our entire lives around it, and then judging and punishing ourselves at the same time. So, I mean, there are so many ways that we have set ourselves up for crazy making, behaviors and confusion. There's so many ways that we teach ourselves to unknow what we know deep inside. Case in point, spanking your child and telling them not to cry. Like just basic things we do. Like we want you to shut off very basic human natural responses to trauma. Like there are we need to start looking at this stuff and unpacking the things that we are doing to each other.
Well, this goes back to the authority figures that are killing our people right now and telling us not to respond with rage, don't respond with protest, and definitely don't respond with magic.
Because all lives matter.
Yeah. So all lives matter. So we can't have a collective response to the violence that we're seeing, the murder that we're seeing. Don't cry. And then there are so many people who are like, well, shield it with white light. No, absolutely. We're not shielding this with white light. I was looking in jambalaya today because I was actually trying to go over some of the basic rituals so that we can do some magic on this blue full moon to in response to the murders that are happening. And one of the things that Mama Louisa Tish says in here is that under when hexing is appropriate is that women, as women, we have a right to go hexing the rapists in our community and to respond to the murder in our community. It is it says, let's see, one evening I was talking with a group of women, a woman-only space in Berkeley, California, and we were discussing a notorious rapist who had done serious damage to several women in the community. I said that because he was a menace to the community, a communal effort against him would be necessary to bring his terrorism to a halt. One of the women said, well, my way of dealing with it has been to surround him in white light. My chair seemed to disappear from under me.
Can I cuss?
Yes, you can cuss on
fuck white light.
Fuck white light right now.
I was like, oh my God.
Can I say something about white light?
Huh?
I said I need to say something about white light.
Yeah, please say
because
something.
First of all, things happen on all different dimensions, okay? There are entities out there that don't even respond to white light, okay? It's not just, I mean, that's just so basic to me, that's just ridiculous. Like, there are entities that do not even respond to white light. White light, just because it's white, doesn't mean that it's a protection.
And when you do that to the terrorists that is in the community, you're protecting the terrorists. You're protecting, it says, it is common knowledge that you surround a person in white light when you want to protect them. Her logic was that she wanted to reform him to turn him into a good person. We ain't dealing.
We're not even dealing
with the person that we're trying to turn into the good person. Our object is not to reform
I want them dead.
These murderous ass cops.
I want them dead.
I want their necks. That's plain and simple.
Can't kill anybody else.
So that they can stop shooting our babies. So they can stop shooting our men and our women, especially our women. We have been carrying a community on our backs with our magic for a very long time. And for you not to speak our names, that acknowledge that these things are happening to us, that we are falling prey, and why we got to have a hashtag for you to do that. Okay,
that tells you that
I'm not surrounding you in white light.
I'm whooping your ass.
Yeah, well, the situation, for instance, the bottom line is a lot of people look at that Sandra Bland video, including the cop who arrested her, I'm sure, and the rest of those cops, and they justify the entire thing by saying, why didn't she just keep it cool?
Right.
Why did she have to get angry and start shooting off at the mouth? Why did her autonomic nervous system kick in with fight or flight? And she knew her rights. So she wanted to fight because she knew her rights, and she was an American citizen with rights, supposedly. But you know, the bottom line is he didn't like her tone. And it's not just Sandra Bland. It's a lot of people. I woke up from a dream 2 nights ago, and all these guns were in my face, and I lost my voice, and I was completely silenced. I could only speak like that. It was amazing, and I was trying to speak about the injustice. It was coming out like that. It was outrageous. The frustration, and it was like all of everything that we've described, what it looks like, happened for me in the dream. I was silenced, and then it was like I became a volcano. The frustration that built inside me was so outrageous. And then when I woke up, I remembered being 28 years old and getting thrown in the back of a police car because I was interfering with a whole bunch of us got off of work. This was in Chicago. We were all coming out of a restaurant where we were working, and it was an all-white street. And the cops had been called because some white fraternity people were fighting in the bar next door. Well, simultaneously, all these Mexican and brown people came rolling out of the restaurant. And so they got diverted by us because we were, I guess, visually more exciting for them. And next thing you know, they're trying to bust a brother who just got off of work for nothing. They're trying to go through his car, this, that, and other thing. He has limited English and like this. So I said, look, I'll read his rights for him. I'm like, you have no business going in his car, this and that and the other thing. And I remembered this time when I walked forward and got a police officer's face and claiming rights. And the first thing that happened was I got thrown in the back of that car right quick and got brought down to be booked. And, you know, it was just so profound 2 mornings ago to wake up and remember that when I was Sandra Bland's age, I had a similar experience where I was speaking aloud. And that experience just revisited me at the age of 45, nearly 20 years later, and told me, shut up. It stole my voice from me just now. And it's had such a profound effect on me these past 48 hours to really reflect on that violence, that shaming, silencing violence. Like, if you won't shut up, we will shut you down. And yeah, we've got to all come together in solidarity with our voice, because this business of, well, you just shouldn't say something is just one of the evilest little tricks in the book.
It's that tongue binding spell, like I said. You know, it's the shaming. All of that culminates in this soul capturing, soul entrapment spell that will show up 20 years later, you know, and say, shut up, and don't do it. Before you can even exit your dream world, don't say anything.
And then we teach it to our children. You know, we're uppity if we speak. Mm-hmm. And you know, one of the things about having power, your own self-power, is having a voice. You know, if you are not given voice and people continue to ignore you, you don't feel powerful. So when we raise generations after generations of boys and girls, and that is the message that black people, black women especially, have been given. Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Right.
How can you ever be what you are supposed to be, your purpose for creation, if you have no voice?
And how can you work magic without your voice?
Well, I think that they do want us to speak when it's in defense of black men. They just don't want us to speak in defense of ourselves, because they have no problem with us running churches and bake sales, and they don't have a problem with that. They don't have a problem with, you know, us protesting in the streets for black men. But when we want to talk about the preacher that's raping everybody, then they want us to be quiet. So they're very particular about when black women can use their voices, you know, much in the same way that they're very particular about black women having children. It's okay for you to have those children that will grow up and pick this cotton, but we don't want you in, 1990, 2000 having children. So they're very particular about when and where Black women can exercise their voice, where we can exercise our sexuality. They're very particular about that.
Do we have any questions from the audience that we want to start taking?
Yeah, we do in our last couple of minutes. So we have, a comment, and it was kind of along the same lines of what we were talking about the children. It says, I don't know if you all have ever spoken about the dissonance surrounding child abuse, sexual and physical, and to how some children are told things like, if someone ever touches you in a way you don't like it, let me know and I'll kill them. And yet these same people will hit their children in the name of discipline, therefore robbing them of their bodies, autonomy, and trust in this person who is supposed to protect them. So that was one comment.
That's a great question, because that was something I did want to touch on. Careful what you say to your children. If you tell your child that you're going to kill somebody, and then the person who touches that child in the wrong way happens to be someone that child also wants to protect, like their brother, their father, their uncle, their teacher, their cousin, then guess what they're not going to do? Tell you. Because they don't want you to A, kill that person, and they don't want you to B, go to jail because you're their parent and they need you. We need to take children very seriously, and we need to develop ways to not be ashamed or afraid to talk very clearly with children about this war zone that they have chosen to incarnate in. We won't traumatize them by protecting them, but we may very well unwittingly participate in traumatizing them by so-called protecting them with silence. So please, parents, take that next step. Be real careful about what you're going to do, because I have a number of grown people in my life who specifically have told me that the reason why they did not tell. I have grown people in my life who've given birth to children who are now grown adults through rape and never told anyone. And when asked as complete grown adults who are well adjusted and have done all what they need to do to heal themselves, their answer is, because my father would have killed him and I couldn't afford that. And I've never told him he's in his grave, and I never told him for his whole life because I did not want to visit my father in jail. So please be careful about that particular use of language.
So it's 12:13. We've gone a little bit over, but obviously we needed to do that tonight. We had one more comment about, do people feel that rapists are criminals?
I feel that rapists are sick individuals. I'm hesitant to criminalize beings on the planet because of the prison industrial complex and the way that it is right now. And the ways that they have penalized one sort of criminal and reward another sort of criminal. Prime example would be Woody Allen and his response to sexual assault for a long time of his stepdaughter, to the fact that he ended up marrying this stepdaughter. And everybody, in the same magazine, right? Then a few weeks later, we have all the sexual assault victims of Bill Cosby on the front of the magazine. So I'm hesitant to say that sexual assault or the person who has sexually assaulted is a criminal and deserves to be locked up, because I'm against the prison industrial complex as a whole. I do believe that they need to face some sort of community penalization. Like the community needs to come together and say, this person, or community tribunal maybe, this person has sexually assaulted me. What is the community response to that?
But unfortunately, I've never been a fan, like you said, of of the school to prison pipeline. But there are people out here who do, I mean, how crime is defined. Now, there's a lot of brothers locked up that have just been railroaded into jail, and I understand that there's a certain amount of those people. But with people like rapists, what I've seen with people that have these sexual deviant types of mentalities, they don't change. They don't seek help, even when they are attempting to be helped. But even if they were, they still won't change. You know. And then you got the way that people see how to treat a rapist. It depends on who he is. Because when you're a duger, you get sent to a work farm. Okay?
This is what I'm saying. There's such a difference in.
I mean, at the base of my human instincts, yes.
It's like, do you say the drug dealer is a criminal? In the eyes of society, he's a criminal.
Right.
Now, different drug dealers are going to get different time. We see that playing out all the time.
Depending
we
on
see
color,
the fact
the
that
type of drug.
the murderer that just, what is his name, that just killed that brother in.
I can't
about Zimmerman.
Like his image is.
When he just got out, we all know who he is. He just got out. Sandra Bland was in jail for 3 days.
He made bail.
In 3 days. Okay, over pulling over so that a police officer could go around her.
But it should be in our communities, like you said, like this man that just killed this brother, this campus Paul Bart rental cop. You know, this guy, a mall cop, kills somebody before not having a license plate. And so, you know, and he walks, he's allowed to make bail. So it should be, and they talk about don't reply, don't have any retribution. Like you said, community justice.
Can we have community justice?
That man should never be able to go outside again.
Community tribunals do work. I've had success with community tribunals. I've been in circumstances where, as a community, it's been brought to our attention. You know, I am blessed to be in strong enough community to do such things. That a brother who we love deeply appeared to be having inappropriate relationships with young men. We didn't have any proof, but we didn't get a good feeling. And do we trust our feelings as witches and as mothers and as community members who are all of us responsible for the youth? We certainly do.
Yes, right.
And we called together the right group of people. We called together family members of his, you know, who were appropriate. We called together a community member who is a psychiatrist. We called in a few healers, myself included, and we sat down. And we sat and really tribuned with this brother so that, one, he knew he was on watch, he knew he was on blast, and he got an opportunity to experience a reflection of love and concern, that we were not ostracizing him. And I will say that this brother has managed himself appropriately. Was it easy? Did he walk out? I mean, was there a whole big break? Did the family members who were in that circle get on the X list from him for a while because he was so filled with shame and so shocked that he would be called out on it? Absolutely. But it all shook out in time, and this person was able to do some work. So there are different kinds of predators out there. There are people who were abused, and they're carrying the cycle of abuse.
Right.
And those people can be touched. Those people can be helped. Not all, not everybody, but we haven't tried yet to see what we can do with people, because there are very few places that a person can go to say, I feel myself looking at my daughter, niece, blah, 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 this child in my house in an inappropriate way. I want to reach out for help now. Who out here is offering interventions of that sort? Who is saying, come to me when the thought crosses your mind, and I won't call the authorities. I won't put you on blast. I will actually work with you and heal you and honor you for being able to say to me that this happened to you, and you now find yourself becoming sexually aroused when this child walks through the room. This is the sort of work we're going to have to do, but you have to break silence and be brave in order to do so.
Yeah, but we're still at the stage where people aren't talking at all. Still. And where we should be at a place. I mean, when even, you have to look at the way things go in this country, where white people who are the most vocal about this type of thing, even the stigma is with them. For us, always, the oppression is tenfold. So we're not even able to reach people on that lesson. So I'm, as a black womanist, I got to figure out what I got to do. I've got all daughters. And what I have to do and what I have to tell them to keep them safe. And I honestly can't sit up and consider the mental health of somebody else who was raped my child. When it gets that personal with me, I can speak high on a community level and be all altruistic about somebody else. But when it comes to my children, of course, I'm not going to tell them I'm going to kill the person, but I'm going to find a way. But they know me well enough. I don't even have to say it.
And there's enough root working to go around where you can do something.
And
for,
and there are people.
Person.
It's just like anybody with any mental illness.
Right.
Some people can be helped, and some people can't be helped.
And for those that can't be helped, they can help themselves to the end of my machete.
Exactly. I want to help themselves to the end of their life.
Right.
But for people that have been abused, we don't have treatment in jail. We don't have treatment in school. Black people don't have treatment in their communities.
Locking them up is not a solution.
No, it's not.
That's not
because they're not going to get any treatment there. They're not going to get any better. They're not going to be given the opportunity to change. And for the ones who won't change, I think as everything, it goes on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
I really can't make a blanket statement about a rapist.
Right. And I feel the same way about domestic violence. I think it has to be on a case-by-case basis. I think that in order to have a community response, you have to have a healthy community. And I think we've just spent over an hour talking about we don't have a healthy community yet. So I feel like there's lots of work that needs to be done on many levels by many people before we can just, say that we're just going to, sit in a circle with people when women are literally being murdered every single day all across this country. Black women are being murdered at ridiculous rates by other men of color. And I think that needs to be addressed. And there's not enough machetes in the world to take care of all the men of color that are actually taking black women off the planet. So I think we really have to come up with some ideas and strategies about how we're going to really get this thing, under control and stop it.
Well, I don't think it would be a lie to say that we have, and it's not. I'm never gonna bash my brothers, but I'm gonna tell you, we have always been the backbone of our society. Because when slave masters saw the power of black men, they did everything they could do to kill it. They weren't even paying attention to us. They were ignoring us. They weren't ignoring our power.
They were busy fucking us.
Well, that's true too, but they didn't think we were powerful when they were fucking us. Mm-hmm. They didn't know anything about what we were capable of. So when we start thinking about the solutions, when everybody talks about building solutions to society, what I try to do is definitely, when you talk about what you say to your children, what you do with your children, like, in the times that spanking is a last resort. I'm not going to sit up here and lie and say I've never done it. But at the same time, after I whoop my child's ass, I'm not going to give them a hug and a kiss and confuse violence with love.
And confuse violence with love. Absolutely.
And so we got to raise our children better. So our communities start in our homes.
That's right, man.
So what we need to do as sisters is help other sisters. My oldest child, I adopted her. She was abused by both of her parents. And now she is a mother. So I have to teach her how to be a better mother. And I make mistakes, based on my own child rearing, which wasn't very good. But at the same time, I talk to them. I let them know why things are the way they are. We deal with the hard topics. There's nothing off limits in my house. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they understand that when they go out in the street, they have to show how they were raised. They're a representation of me. And so people ask, well, what are you doing for the world? I'm making better human beings, goddammit. That's what I'm doing.
And a lot of women. Yeah, that's right.
And I mentor, and I work spiritually with other people. You know, I'm sending that girl who comes to me talking about she want a love spell. I'm sending her home with some peaceful home and some cut and clear, so she got to get rid of that motherfucker. He got to go. That's what we do. We are healers, and like what Miss Black said, she's right. In a perfect condition, that's an awesome thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and I love that it worked in that case, and I'm very open to that. But we dealing with people. You have to understand, we are dealing with generations and generations of insanity. You can't live in constant oppression, and not be sane.
Yeah.
You know, and be
That's why we work as witches, though. That is why what we do, what we're doing tonight, what we do every full moon is important, because we're opening portals is what we're doing by reflecting truths to people who have perhaps felt the same but don't have an opportunity to bounce it off of anyone. And we bounce it off of each other for the exact same reason. That's why we started this, so that we could bounce this off of each other. And the thing is we know that we can change collective frequencies. We know that we have skills to go back and deal with familial curses, deal with legacy, deal with these long-term spirals. So breaking silence, breaking cycles, and really keeping an eye out for shame and guilt. Not perpetuating a household culture of shame is very important. Be it around if the child be stanking today or whatever. Do not shame the child. Let's just all focus on cultivating a household that becomes way more conscious of shame, way more conscious of blame, way more conscious of guilt. And for all of us, that takes mindfulness. So that's what I want to task people with, at our end of our time here today. I want to say we have a lot more power than we think we do. Really not being afraid to look at the legacy, not being afraid to do some serious root work or energy work or whatever kind of work we need to do to break cycles, break shame, and break silence.
And I want to add, too, that I think even with all the craziness that's happening in the world right now, I feel like there are opportunities for healing that were not available even when I was born, right, 40 plus years ago. And so, I mean, the fact that we can call ourselves black witches and like nobody's chasing us with stakes and trying to, not yet anyway, but
they might come for us after
don't come. But really, the fact that we can have these conversations, the fact that we can post things on the computer and have 2,000 people look at it, 4,000 people look at it, the fact that this message is going to go out and touch who knows how many people, and the fact that we can just have these conversations. The space is open to talk now. So that is not a loss on me, even with all the craziness that we chose to incarnate at this time to make real change.
This is giving voice. The minute somebody is allowed to speak, their soul is set free.
Ashe.
You are free. When you are allowed to speak, you have freedom. Like with Sandra Bland, she was evoking her freedom to speak. So we can't stop speaking because somebody is going, even at the risk of our own lives, because we're dead without it. We're dead inside if we have no voice.
We're dead without it.
We're the walking dead. Screw a TV show. We are the real walking dead when we have no voice.
And I want to say also, try everything. Prisons ain't the answer, all right? All right? Try everything. Try everything. Try love. Try everything. If shielding people in the white light is your answer to the question, I don't think the shit work for every occasion. But if shielding people in the white light is your answer, do that shit. And then let us, that is not about that shit, do something else. But try everything. Try everything. It's okay. Try it all. Put it all in the pot and make it a gumbo of healing. But we got to do something, and don't be intimidating people and making people feel shamed about their damn anger and about wanting to do something more than shielding people in the white light and singing Kumbaya. Okay?
You can't kill a gun with a daisy.
Try it all. Try it all, babies.
And we do have one more comment saying, no, 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 rape is not just a sick individual, but a sick power over culture. And rape culture does know the power of the divine feminine sex.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to kill it. Every time somebody's raped, it's not about sex, it's about power.
It's about power, absolutely.
It's not about sex, it's about power.
And it's about sickness. It's about generations and generations and generations of sickness incarnating in that individual.
Well, because it's like they might have been molested, most of them have.
Yes.
I'm willing to say 95% of them have been sexually assaulted and molested. Nobody cared about them. And that pent-up anger and that rage, nobody cared about me, so I'm not going to care about anybody else. So we really have to start treating people who have been hurt.
Yes, it's about power and overarching power, and it's about that individual too. Please don't take away the fact that that individual needs treatment
and
needs
not just that, they're brought up in a culture where they know that if they do rape someone, it's not going to be their fault to a lot of people. Like they said, rape culture, slut shaming. This stuff is prevalent from Puritan times on. The silencing of our sexuality, and if we ever do anything so much as show an arm, we deserved it. And we constantly are telling our daughters and even our sons how not to get raped. How about we tell people how not to be rapists?
Exactly. Exactly. So we have one last comment, and then I think we need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Black hole orgasmic love culture is the counter spell to rape culture.
Say that again.
Black hole orgasmic love culture is the counter spell to the rape culture.
It is in a way, because you got to think about this. I think, at least from my perspective and growing up, and I'm 46 years old, that black people can be some of the most sexually repressive people just with regular sex. You got grown-ass men talking about they don't eat pussy. Really? Only brothers, mind you. You won't never hear a white man say he don't eat pussy. But a brother, even if he's doing it, he'll tell you he don't eat pussy. I got married to a man who had never done it. I laid there on my wedding day, and I was like, oh, God, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. He quickly learned. But you know, everything's dirty. We teach our children that sex is dirty, sex is nasty. In my house, sex is good, whether I'm getting any or not. I don't subscribe to those things that make us ashamed. What I subscribe to is keeping yourself safe. Are you having safe sex? Are you giving your spirit to somebody? Because that's what you're doing when you're having sexual relationship, to somebody who's worthy of that piece of you.
Yes.
I posted about that the other day. People can pass evil into you in a sexual relationship.
Yes.
So you got to look at sex in a different way. The act itself is one of the most beautiful things on earth.
Can you, because I'm thinking that is Valencia, so can you kind of break down black hole orgasmic love space for us?
It was Valencia.
Black hole orgasmic love space is, you know, to my basic understanding at this time, is the concept that wholeness, not whole like H-O-L-E, whole, W-H-O-L-E.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept that black people need to do the work of wholeness and the work of orgasm. Orgasm generates creativity, miracles. It makes you a creator unto yourself. And so the kind of energy that moves through the body, the kind of energy that moves through the body when you're looking at the Tao, for instance, when you're looking at the work that happens that we're doing with yoni eggs, when you're looking at this work that we're doing, when you're looking at some of the sexual kung fu that people do, the idea is that orgasm has creative potential. The energy does not need to be spent and wasted. And we should have a full show on this, and we can have Valencia on. The energy does not need to be spent and wasted. The energy can be recycled in your body. The energy can be pulled up for wholeness, for holding you, for healing you. You can draw that energy into your organ bodies. You can draw that energy into your liver to soothe that anger. You can say, I am dedicating this orgasm to the child who had her first orgasm while being molested or raped. That is, me or my child. You can dedicate that genius, brilliant, black hole, W-H-O-L-E, black hole orgasmic frequency to your own healing, to your own community, and to your own wellness. And when you find the power, the orgasmic divinity of yourself, then rape no longer becomes an attractive thing.
And that's individual work.
Yes, very individual.
That's community work, but that is also looking at the individual person as a black hole wellness, a place of black hole wellness.
And that's the thing, when you actually have people who have that, and then they enter into a relationship with somebody else who has that, and that energy that's generated between two people, where know you were just there with somebody, you were walking that same path, you were doing that same thing, it becomes a sacred, life-saving force, and it holds you together. And that was the whole purpose for sex in the first place. You're not just making babies. It's that tie. It's those soul ties. See, the problem is with black people, we, from the very beginning, were kept from making soul ties. That's black people especially, because they took our children. We were scared to make soul ties with our own children.
Yes.
So we're scared to make soul ties within our own families. I used to look at white people growing up, because I grew up around a lot of them, and saw how their mothers hugged them and kissed them. And my mother never did that till she got old.
Well, we would have to go back to slavery and enslavement and know that you couldn't really show affection to that child, because if you showed that affection to that child, that was the first hit that was whatever they took from you.
And that's exactly my point.
They knew how to break you if you showed any sort of infection.
So just like hypertension and high blood pressure probably started off as something as a result of conditioning, stress, and food, it has mutated into genetics. And so at the same time, this whole thing where this lack of affection, love, and care of our children as black people was created by that atrocity, we have to be very cognizant about how we continue that tradition with our children. Our children need to be loved, held, kissed, cuddled, especially so they know good touch from bad touch. Because you have to admit, a lot of these kids, the first time they've ever been touched like that, in any form of what they might think is affection, is when they're being abused.
Yes.
They've never been kissed before. They've never been held before, so you've got this confusion. I'm not supposed to be doing this, but it feels good, because that's what we're supposed to have. My stepdaughter's mother is Korean. They found her on the road in Korea at 8 months old. That nobody knows what happened to this child in the first 8 months of her life, but she's schizophrenic today. And so we're continuing those walls, those emotional walls, in so many ways with our children, where they don't want to talk to us about these types of things. They don't want to talk to you about regular sex. They're not going to come talk to you about being raped, because we have not shown them love collectively. And I'm not talking about individually. There's plenty of black mothers who love and kiss and hug their kids, but I just noticed that in my generation is when it really started. And before that...
it didn't start there.
Well, I'm talking about with the actual loving and hugging and kissing. Really, we started really affectionate with our children. When everybody's like, well, why is that? Well, Jim Crow was my mama's generation.
But it's also, children should be, I mean, I'm your same age. So, when I was growing up, it was very much children should not, children should be seen, not heard. Children have their own table separate from the adults, which, I mean, I do subscribe to some of that, even though I don't have no kids, but I definitely see reasons for it. But, it's a new thing of talking to children like they weren't your property. Where you're talking, but you're doing other things besides just giving direction. That is, I think, a new thing that we're learning to do.
Well, and what if, on the topic of black hole orgasmic love, we actually, when we have so-called birds and bees talks with the children, talk to them about their power, their orgasmic power. What if we didn't just right quick tell them to use a condom and tell them about STDs and freak them out and the little things that we mostly do? What if we actually told them, when you come of age, you're going to become a creator, like a god. And with that power comes great responsibility. And think of all the things you want to create. We could start our children out, whole black people, saying your orgasm can be dedicated to getting an A on an exam, to the completion of a project, to a dream that you have.
Yeah.
You have such power in you that you can create your own reality using that frequency that you can generate with this orgasm that you're finding all of a sudden is coming over your body. You go into a dream state. You have boys, they have these wet dreams, as we call them, at night. What if we started talking to children like that? If that didn't somehow shame us, that we could tell that to a child, and a child would had that as their baseline template for who they are, and they wouldn't need to go out looking for power, using their sexuality for power, embodying them with their own power. This is vision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we need to wrap up. What do you?
We do.
We could talk all night. Thank you for letting me run my mouth.
Okay. I loved it.
Elizabeth Ruth, thank you for being with us. It has been an absolute pleasure to be in space with you, in circle with you, and generating this energy with you. Your vision, your work in the community is greatly appreciated. Your honesty, your earnestness, and your ability to model for all of us how to be open and clear and honest is greatly appreciated. So you've been a beautiful and wonderful guest on July 2015 Blue Moon Black Witch Chronicles with Lakeisha Harris, Zoe Flowers, and Dr. G. Love.
We love you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.